Hey everyone, Zach Feldman here, lead software engineer on the marketplace team at Framework, and I'm here today to talk to you about switching from macOS to Ubuntu or a Linux distribution, especially from the point of view of a web developer. As for myself, I'm a Ruby on Rails engineer. I mostly work on the website at frame.work, which is using Solidus, which is a fork of Spree, popular e-commerce framework. And I mostly write Ruby and Rails kind of stuff. And for many years, I was working on macOS, kind of following the Mac hype train and all of that. And recently, in the last few years, I've switched to using Ubuntu as my daily driver. And I really do think it's kind of the year of the Linux desktop. It's time for a lot of people to make that move and try out Linux and really try moving over and using it as your daily driver in your desktop environment and not just as a place to host your websites, since a lot of our servers actually run some flavor of Linux. So you're probably wondering if I want to move over from macOS to Ubuntu or a similar Linux distribution. What are my options? How can I replace some of the workflows and programs that I normally use? Well, I'm here to walk you through that today and explain some of the things that make my experience on Ubuntu really nice and in some ways kind of Mac-like. So the first thing I wanted to point out is that here on my Ubuntu desktop, and let me actually go to the desktop to show you that. Here we go. Here on my Ubuntu desktop, I've got on the top left the Spotlight feature, which is actually known as the Activities bar on Ubuntu. And this is a lot like Spotlight on macOS. It's a lot like, Alfred or similar programs. What I do is I usually map it to Command 0, and that way I can just quickly access it, and it can do stuff like do math quickly. It can do stuff like, opening up a program that you need to open, but I find this to be a lot like Spotlight on macOS and quite similar in feature sets. So that's one thing that helped me move. Another thing that's similar about Ubuntu and a lot of Linux distributions, especially those that use the GNOME desktop, which is what I'm using here, is that they have a dock at the very bottom of the screen. You can actually move it around to the left or the right. You can hide it and auto-hide it when you're not using it, but this is sort of also emulating my Mac-like experience where my application icons get out of the way and let me kind of do my work, and that's quite nice. One other thing that I like to use to make my experience a bit more Mac-like on Ubuntu is a program called Tashi, and what this does is it actually maps your Command key or your Alt key on your Framework Laptop 13 keyboard to the basically Control key in a lot of programs. And so if you're used to, on a Mac, having the workflow of pressing Command-C to copy, Command-V to paste, Command-Tab to switch between programs, that type of thing, then this program is incredibly helpful and basically will make it so that you don't have to remap your mental model of how to do things. On a stock Ubuntu installation, if you try to copy and paste in the terminal, you have to press Control-Shift-C. It's quite jarring. So Tashi really helps with that. And a similar program to that I've used before is called Kinto. The main idea is make your Alt key a Command key so you don't have to sort of relearn how to type after moving from macOS. And this is one of the biggest things I think that made the difference and really allowed me to switch. As far as other replacement programs, so we've got programs for signing documents as well. And personally, what I found is that moving from macOS to Ubuntu, one of the programs that I actually missed the most, in fact, was Preview. And Preview, the reason why is that I used it to sign all of my PDF documents, and I would fill them with Preview, type in all the fields, and then add my signature to them at the end. And what's quite nice about Ubuntu and a lot of other distros is it comes out of the box with Firefox. And it turns out that Firefox can actually be used to sign documents in a way, and to also fill them out. So let's see, here we've got a document. I'm not exactly sure what this is. This is some kind of document from the Santa Cruz Regional County Transportation Commission, but it was freely available on the web, so hopefully it's okay to use in this video. And basically, you can highlight the document, make annotations to it, etc. But the biggest thing here is the ability to actually sign it. So if I go here, I've got a signature file. And the only sort of bit of advanced work you have to do here is make this file, which is a little bit harder than on Preview. But if you're handy with an image editor, and I'll go through a little later some common image editors on Ubuntu and Linux distributions, then you can pretty easily create an image like this of your image, of your signature, and you can also compress it and maybe put a secure password behind it, which I haven't done, but you could certainly protect it on your system a bit better. And then if you have that, you can just use the Firefox image annotator to throw that signature in there. And again, it also allows you to fill out PDFs, highlight them, etc. So I find that's a really nice sort of replacement for Preview. Preview is one of the last things actually keeping me on my MacBook Pro M1 laptop on macOS. Now I would like to, instead use Firefox for that, and then I don't have to go back to that computer just to do one thing. So that's quite nice. If you're a programmer, again, this video is kind of geared towards web developers, Rails developers, Ruby people, etc. Then obviously your text editor is quite important. And so for that, let's just leave this page here. For that, we've got the usual suspects. And in my case, it's Sublime Text. I've been using this for a very long time, and it's kind of the most comfortable programming environment that I have. And so you can do stuff like install packages. You can obviously edit your code, syntax highlighted, etc. These are obvious things. You can also install VS Code very easily on Ubuntu or Linux distribution, and a lot of other editors actually have Linux versions available as a .deb or .rpm or whatever else. You can just kind of install these editors and use them just like you would. And honestly, this works very similar to how it worked on macOS, especially with Tashi or Kinto or a similar command key mapper. So that's quite nice. And then, obviously, if you're a programmer, you're also going to want to use some type of terminal emulator. And Ubuntu and a lot of Linux terminals, a lot of Linux distros ship out of the box with a terminal emulator that looks like this. But I actually prefer to use something called Tilix. And this is actually similar, has a lot of similar features to something like iTerm 2. I think they're actually on iTerm 3 these days. But general idea is, you can not only, have one window, but you can also split out into multiple. You can have multiple tabs. You can make it clear. Some of these things you can do in the default terminal emulator, but I find that Tilix kind of makes it a bit easier to customize and make your terminal look exactly as you'd like it to look. So that's quite nice to have. And then obviously managing passwords is also a big thing for web developers and other folks who are looking to move systems. I use 1Password personally, and sometimes Bitwarden. And what's nice is that there are native clients for a lot of these programs for Linux distributions. So here's the 1Password version for Ubuntu. Looks very similar to the one on a Mac. They also have a browser extension that integrates directly with the desktop client, just like on a Mac. And so you can do things like sign in with your fingerprint. What you have to do first is unlock your vault using your vault password, and then you're able to use system authentication to unlock it in the future for a certain amount of time. And so that means that you can either use your fingerprint or you can use your system password if you'd like. But either way, you have the convenience of 1Password and similar convenience of getting your passwords as you would on other systems, and that's quite nice. So we've also got VirtualBox. I don't have it installed in this machine, but to give you an idea, you could use that to emulate Windows or other operating systems, maybe even other Linux distros if you'd like. If you need to do any testing of the browser, of a web page or something on a different type of system, you could emulate them using VirtualBox quite easily. So that's very nice. Another big part of web development is, of course, design, and designers are also sort of notorious for using macOS. Well, these days you've got Figma, and what's really nice about that is that it's fully in the browser. And so the same feature set that you would see on a macOS, you'll also see on Ubuntu or on a Linux distribution. So here I've got up our framework design system, the color system, and you can see I'm just using it without much lag at all. Everything is pretty snappy, pretty fast. And so as a designer, or like I said, this video kind of geared towards web developers, you can easily get to Figma, navigate it, leave comments, do everything you would. And this is really nice. I mean, coming from the world I came from 10, 15 years ago, designers were using Illustrator or Photoshop, gosh forbid, or Sketch even, some people, but these are all desktop applications. And I think this is really why Figma is one. They're in the web, really easy to share things between developers and designers. And so again, this is quite nice. On Ubuntu, here I am using a sort of image editor that my designer likes to use, and it's all full featured and right in the browser. There's nothing to install at all. Of course, if you do need to do some local image editing, which happens sometimes, there's a program which has a sort of unfortunate name. It's called the GIMP, which stands for New Image Manipulation Program. And this is a sort of Microsoft Paint-like program where you can open up an image and do basic kind of manipulations to it. So here's my signature, for instance, and I can just sort of mess with it if I want to, and that's easy. And then if this isn't going to work for you, then another thing that you can do is you can go to photopea.com, and this is a really nice, like, full-featured image editor. There's actually a great story behind this. If you look up the person that created it, where it's sort of this person who started out quite young building this editor and trying to get feature parity with something like Photoshop. And then they were able to do that and not get sued by Adobe and everything. But this is a really amazing image editor, I have to say. And it takes all the Adobe image formats, as you can see. And that's really nice. Basically, what's cool about this is that it actually does this all locally. If you check the network request, it won't upload your image to the web. You can actually even turn off the internet while you're using this if you want to be totally sure of this. But, for instance, I can find an image of a horse. Here we go. That's a nice prancing pony. I'll just copy it and then go into Photopea and paste it in. And then I can do stuff just like I would in Photoshop. Cool horse, something like that. But the point is, you don't even need Preview or any of the image editing programs that you normally have installed in your desktop. A lot of this lives on the web these days. And if you really need a local solution, then you've got the new image manipulation program. So that kind of covers image editing on the Ubuntu and, sort of related Linux distros. Another thing that you might find interesting if you are on the web a lot, if you're into games, is that there's a Steam client for Ubuntu. So if you're a big gamer, you can install Steam, and it really integrates well into the system. You can see here, I've got all my games up. If I want to play Jackbox Party Pack with my coworkers or play some Starfield, which is pretty amazing, then I can do that. And what's really nice about Steam on Ubuntu and other Linux distros is that it comes with something called Proton. And what Proton is basically some technology that's built on top of Wine, which is a Windows emulation program. And what it'll let you do is play games that are only technically compatible with Windows on your Steam account. So here I am, by the way, trying to use Steam. I don't use it super often, but let's see if I can make this window bigger and we can see more of what's going on here. Group chats. Well, I think you get the point. This is Steam. You can play games on it if you'd like, and they use emulation to make it so that you can play Windows games on Linux, and it works quite well. I've played plenty of major titles using Proton and using Wine, and it works pretty well. It's not going to be as good as having native hardware, of course, but it'll get you most of the way there. And again, it's another thing where you don't have to go back to your Mac or Windows machine. You can actually just play these games, if you'd like, directly on your Linux computer. So that's really nice. As far as the Office suite goes, you've got a lot of people who are using macOS who like to edit documents and spreadsheets and this type of thing. And engineers and programmers have to do this as well from time to time. Who hasn't had a CSV file open to add some data or import some data to an application, for instance? So for this, obviously, you've got the usual suspects like Google Drive and Office 365. But what's quite nice about Ubuntu and most Linux distros is that they come with the LibreOffice suite. So you've got LibreOffice Calc, Writer, Draw, etc. And basically they replace all of these Office programs decently, where if you need to do offline editing of something, you can. Here you've got your spreadsheet program. They've also got LibreOffice Writer, and you can draft your book all locally, so you don't have to have it hacked on the web somewhere. My Amazing Novel, there it is. But basically, yeah, you've got all these Office programs that are basically completely free, open source, developed over many years, and they're so good that actually the German government switched over to using them completely instead of paying licensing fees for something like Office 365 or something like that. So these are really nice. They come with the system. They just come installed, and you don't have to be on the web doing things if you don't want to, which is really awesome. One last area I'll highlight is multimedia. So obviously, as engineers, we love our music. We love to listen to music while we code. Some people, they find it distracting, but for me personally, I like to have a bit of a soundtrack. And you've got a native Spotify client on here, and Spotify kind of looks the same everywhere. It looks the same on the web, looks like this to me on Windows or on Mac. I think because they use a web view here, I'm not 100% sure. But the point is, yeah, full featured Spotify. Here we've got Silk Sonic. I can just throw it on. Works quite well. I've got all of my sort of speakers at home in here. That all works out of the box as well, so I can play music in my bathroom if I'd like. But yeah, you've got a full featured Spotify here on Ubuntu, so that definitely shouldn't stop you from switching. Obviously, as far as web browsers go, I've shown you Chrome and I've shown you Firefox as well. Those work quite well, and there's a few other options as well for Ubuntu. In fact, there's some cutting edge options that only exist on Linux, but that's a whole other video. And then again, last thing I'll point out for multimedia is VLC. So a lot of you have used this on macOS or on Windows. They've got clients for many different major operating systems, but this works very well on Ubuntu and other Linux distros and can play basically any media format, video, audio, you name it. It's your Swiss Army knife. Huge props to the creator of VLC, by the way. You've done something great for the world here. But yeah, this works really well on Ubuntu, and will cover all your media playback needs as well without any need to worry about going back to another operating system. Lastly, obviously, it's important to back up your files and make sure that they are restored from time to time. And Ubuntu and a lot of Linux distros come with utilities for that. So there's a backup program. I'm kind of bad. I'm on a newer laptop here that I haven't done a backup yet on, but on my primary machine, I have a backup and I back it up every week. And I've also tried restoring it several times just to make sure that that works. We all know backups are kind of useless without testing the restoration process. But yeah, you can make a backup to an external drive and restore it quite easily. It's not a completely bulletproof program. I think that there have been some reports online of it being slow or taking a while to restore, this kind of thing. But if you're looking for a sort of time machine equivalent or something to replace it at least and try to replace the functionality of it, then this might be a good program for you to check out. And again, it's free, included on all Ubuntu distribute installations, and it also is present in a lot of other distros as well. So to wrap it up, those are some of the tools I would recommend if you are a web developer. I'm specifically a Ruby on Rails developer, but those are some of the tools I'd recommend for really any engineer, designer, someone kind of in the industry, so to speak, if you're looking to switch from macOS to Ubuntu. And hope you found this video helpful. Again, I'm Zach Feldman here at Framework on the Marketplace team as a lead software engineer, and I'd love to hear what you think about this video. If you have any comments, definitely leave them and let me know if you have other ideas for ways that you've moved from macOS to Ubuntu, Fedora, Debian, really any Linux distro. I'd love to hear from you. Have a great day.